Hello, welcome to this idle loan update. Just wanted to get a little more information out as the idle loan program is kind of winding down. It's the only disaster program the SBA has left other than its standard natural disaster program. But as far as the COVID relief programs, PPP's been done for quite some time. You should have already had forgiveness taking place on that. If not, I would strongly suggest you get that knocked out pretty quick. Now, the idle loan, it's technically available for a new idle loan through the end of December. So December 31st is the official cutoff date. Now, the only issue with that is you need to go through their process. So we're here at the 2nd of December. I would suggest if you were at all considering that, that you jump on that right away. And if not, if you haven't applied probably by the 14th for your initial idle loan, then there's probably there's not much of a chance of you being able to get everything approved and what have you in time. Still worth a try. Not a whole lot to it, but if you're seeing this, right now or pretty quickly after the 2nd of December, then I'd suggest jumping on that. Now, if you've already received an idle loan, okay, now, and I'll cover some of the changes that they've made to it as far as the increased amount. And basically what they've done is they've tripled the amount that you, if you got one initially, and that you can get approved for in the second one. Now, if you already have a loan, you have 2 years from the date that you originated that first loan to apply for one. However, we're probably going to be looking at running out of money on this thing long before everybody gets to their 2 years, I'm sure. So once again, I'd go ahead and make a decision whether or not you wanted to do it and get that done as quick as possible. Not quite as urgent. There is a lot more documentation. It'll go up to $2 million now, but there's some significant changes in that program. So, and I wanted to cover a few of those. Now, I also wanted to touch base. It's pretty confusing. There's actually 3 programs that are available right now that people are hearing about, and it's confusing. But you have the regular loan program that we've just been discussing, and I'll cover later. And then you have what's called the Targeted Idle Advance. And what that is if you qualify, and there's 2 main conditions is, and if your business address is within a targeted area, and there's a map on the SBA website that can tell you whether or not you're in that area. But for both the Targeted Idle Advance and what they call the Supplemental Targeted Advance, you're going to need to be within those areas. Now, for the Idle Advance, it's going to make up the difference between what you had already received in the initial advance up to $10,000. So if you had 10 employees and you got $10,000, there's nothing else for you to get out of the Targeted Idle Advance. However, if you only have 2 employees and you're within that range, then you would, within that area, then you would potentially qualify for the Targeted Idle Advance, which would then give you, let's say you had 2 employees, it would get you up to the 10,000, so it would be an additional 8,000. Now, these aren't loans; these are free grants that are coming to you. Now, the only other requirement for the Targeted Idle Advance, and this is basically the difference between it and the Supplemental Targeted Advance. The Targeted Idle Advance requires you to have at least a 30% reduction in revenue over a 2-month contiguous period in 20 compared to 19. I know that's pretty complicated, but what we're basically talking 2 months where your revenue in 20 was less than those same 2 months in 19. Now they have to be contiguous. You can't have January and September. So it would have to be like a February and March, or March and April, those 2 that are contiguous to each other. And so if you're at 30%, reduction over that time frame, and that could be any time throughout that. And your total revenue could be higher in 2020, just as long as you have those months that qualify you. And so then that would get you to the additional amount of $10,000 less what you've already been given in an advance. Now, the supplemental targeted advance is just a straight $5,000 extra in addition to the targeted EIDL advance. And if you qualify for the targeted, you're not going to be able to qualify for the supplemental targeted advance without qualifying for the targeted advance. But it's an additional $5,000, the same requirement as far as your business being within the targeted area. But the difference, instead of the 30% reduction, it's got to be a 50% reduction in revenue. So those are the things. And these are both the targeted EIDL advance will accept applications through the 31st of December, but the supplemental will only accept for another 8 days. So that's going to be the December 10th. And so anyway, those are the main situations with those advances. And then I wanted to cover some more items with you. Let's see here. Okay. They have changed one of the use of proceeds. I'm not going to backtrack on that. Everybody ought to have a pretty good idea. If not, go back to some of my other videos. But one of the other things that they've done is they've allowed you to what they call prepay debt. And so it's not clear that it's a refinance of debt. In fact, and they're clearly not saying that, but they're saying you can prepay that debt. I don't have any information as to how far you can prepay it up. So that's kind of an interesting situation as it relates to that. So let me look at some of these other things. Okay. Yeah, it's called, here's exactly from the website. Use of funds has expanded to include payment and prepayment of business non-federal debt incurred at any time, past or future, and payment of federal debt. So that's basically what it says. And then also when you get the next loan, you're deferred for another 24 months. And let's see what else here. Yeah, so those are kind of the main situations that have really changed. And then I'm going to get into some other things that are kind of interesting. So for loans that are $500,000 to $2 million, there's a lot more documentation that's required on that. They're going to really scrutinize those more than the ones under $500,000. Also over $500,000. Let me double check on the amount if it's not showing it here. But they are taking real estate now as collateral and requiring that if you have it on certain loan amounts. For sure over the 500, but I was wanting to look and see maybe it's over. It might be over 200,000. Let me double check on that right quick and see where that is. Okay, I'm going through these things. Okay. All right. And the loan terms are all still the same. The 3.75 for business, 2.75 for nonprofits, and it's a 30-year loan, fixed interest rate. Okay, so yeah, loans greater than $500,000. SBA is taking real estate, and there's a one-time $100 fee for filing a lien, and it's going to be your responsibility to record those liens, which is kind of funny, but it's what they're going to require. yeah, the 200,000, when anything over 200,000 requires a personal guarantee. So somebody's going to have to sign and be personally liable for that. Anything under that, there's no personal guarantee. And, you know, in that, and then absolutely no collateral under 25,000. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand. The anything over 25,000, the SBA is filing, and they have filed. This has always been the case. With typically your state a blanket sort of lien. I think in Texas it's called a I went blank on it, but UFOC, I believe, and they'll file it with the state. That's not been a big issue for anybody as far as in the past, because it hasn't been common for most lenders to search that, unless you're involved in farming, where you deal with the government financing considerably. That's the only place that it's been an issue. But all that really means is if you are selling a piece of collateral that, and someone who's buying it wants to check and make sure, you'll have to just get the SBA to sign off on that, and they've got a whole department set up to help you with that, because they're going to be far busier doing that in the future. I do look to see banks in the future taking a look at those at a state level and requiring those sign-offs from SBA. So if you thought, hey, I've got a little bit of collateral set aside here, and you say from time to time go and get a line of credit on some of that equipment or something, that's something that probably won't be available to you in the future. So just be aware of that, especially if you have a loan over $25,000. And so let's look at some of the other kind of hot topics on it. You apply the same off of your portal. There should be a green link when you log into your regular application portal to request an extension. If for some reason you don't have that, then I would send an email to the disaster customer service at SBA.com and let them know you don't have that on your portal, and so that you could maybe get that put back on there, or they give you another way of doing it. And it could be that you everyone that applied for that EIDL advance also got the loan offered to them, and if you didn't get that, take advantage of that loan, then they have turned you down. So you can't just go back into the system and start over from scratch if you had the EIDL advance. And so what you would have to do then is file a reconsideration, because they turned you down basically because they didn't hear anything back from you. Now I will say right now their time frames are really tight, so you need to be checking that portal and the email that you provided to them daily, because they're very quickly to turn you down for lack of sending them the information that they need. And a lot of the documentation may take a couple of days to get, and you're limited to generally about 7 days from the time they send that email to get them the documents uploaded, so, or to send them to them, and it's varying depending on where you're at in the process as to whether you email documents to somebody or if you just upload them to the portal. But they're going to be wanting tax return. I'll go over the checklist here in just a second. But those are kind of the main changes or differences. And now they have also put in a credit score requirement. So 570 or better is required for loans less than $500,000. For loans over $500,000, 625 is required. So just be aware of that. And let me see if there was anything else here that was major. It's jogging my memory here. All right, I don't think so. Okay, let's go back and let's look at Intake application. Here's the intake application checklist. I'm going to cover that. The documentation that you kind of need to go. And there's a checklist. There's a lot of good info on the SBA website. And that's basically where I'm getting most of mine. We get a few, kind of behind the scenes webinars, but there hasn't really been anything different than we've been told or unusual. It seems to show up on the website before they even discuss it with us in the webinars anymore. But okay, so you're going to go through the same stuff, and let's see where that check. I thought this was a checklist. Apparently it's not. Okay. All right, entity eligibility questions. I cover those. Okay, so you are going to have to provide your 2019 and in some cases 2020 tax returns, and they're going to provide a 4506, which is a request to IRS form, specifically designed for them. So use the one on the portal or that they send to you, and it needs to be identical to the address, the spelling of your company name, everything to what your 2019 tax return shows. So it may be that you didn't put LLC or you didn't put a comma or something like that whenever you initially made your first application, and that all went fine at the time, but now it's going to be all predicated on it being identical to that. And that's the biggest holdup that I've seen, is people not being able to get verified as businesses, mainly because that 4506T comes back where IRS couldn't determine you were the same company. And I know, yeah, you have the EIN number and all of that, but because I believe the process is completely automated, and so there's just not many staff, if any, that are reviewing that. I think that's where the problem's coming in. Even though the numbers are the same, they're wanting to make it, and the whole purpose is really a fraud detection situation anyway. So if it is a little off, well, chances are, from their thought process that you may not know enough about the business to properly fill that out, and so you're just trying to use another business and incur a loan and get the proceeds for that, which unfortunately there's been some of that. I haven't personally had any clients have been victims of that, but most of my clients have been taking advantage of the program, so they haven't really left anything there for a scammer to kind of take a hold of. So let's see if there was anything else I wanted to be sure and cover on this stream. I think let me see what we've got here. All right. Yeah, and then they also have a portal checklist and instructions, which is pretty handy. It's a nice document to explain to you how to access that. It's not always matching up with what everybody else has on their portal, but if it does, it works pretty good for you. So let me see who went to that. All right, and the application's pretty similar to the initial one that I reviewed before, but it's a little bit, they've added a few more questions and a couple of different requirements for documents or for other information, but it's very, very similar. Certainly has the same look. So let's see here. Let me cover a few things. So fees, there's a $100 filing fee on liens for borrower's business assets plus the cost of to file a lien on real estate when applicable. And this is stating on loans over 25,000, but I've seen it different in other places, so I don't know which one is accurate for sure. I believe it's going to be the over $500,000 when they're taking real estate, but it does state that on the site here. So, but collateral is required for $25,000 or more. Personal guarantee at $200,000, and there's you apply for the increase on your portal. And if you're applying for the first loan, then you just go through the regular COVID EIDL application process. And that's probably about all of the real differences. But the SBA website has all of this information. And if you go to SBA COVID EIDL, and you can access all of this information. So I hope this was beneficial to some folks, and doesn't look like we had anybody on the actual stream, which is not unusual. But I am going to try to start putting in some Q&A streams here in the future. So be sure and subscribe so you can be made aware of when those are going to be. And what I'll basically just be doing is answering questions that people put in the chat about whatever it is that they have, and probably bring in some other experts to talk about those things. So anyway, I do appreciate it. I'll have this this will be here on the channel for you to review. So you guys take care. Thanks.